Making sure we are all loaded here. Just for your and the public's note, we are actually going to stream this meeting on YouTube for those who may not be able to attend. That was a last-minute ad based on the number of comments and thoughts that we may get during the meeting and the number of people who were potentially going to miss earlier in the day. So this will be on YouTube, and we're just making sure it is up. So this item before you on the special meeting, and sorry for the awkwardness of the kind of two agendas, this item was wanted to be added to the regular agenda. We didn't get it in time, get to it in time, and so we didn't want to push it back an entire month, and so we added it to the special agenda so that we could hear it tonight. So as we've done in the past, maybe not with some of the newer commissioners, but in front of the Rec Commission in general, we consider proposals from contract instructors who want to provide some sort of instruction at the community center. The city in the past has reached out to contract instructors to get and to add to the offerings that we provide. And so you will know there's dance classes in the community center, there are current yoga classes in the community center, and there are karate classes in the community center. The city has an arrangement where they charge what they will charge, and the city, for overhead, cleaning, maintenance, and all that, will collect 25% of what they collect, 75% going to the instructor for use of the community center. And so the one before you is, it's another yoga class. It is different in that it is during the day, and it is a free will offering. So there's not a set rate. They will ask for $5 a class, but it is a free will offering. And so part of the discussion tonight in front of especially the new Rec Commission is overall, what's the intent of having instruction at the community center? Is it come one, come all? Are we trying to diversify? And so these are the things I think we should consider as new ones come before us, and as we look at approving those or not approving those. There are thoughts on both sides for sure. In particular, yoga has been very successful, and there's been demand for further yoga classes. As we understand, the current yoga instructor doesn't have capacity to offer more classes, and so there's this, supplemental classes being offered in a different time, and really kind of for even a different target audience. And so that is the item before you. For this item, obviously we have a lot of people in the audience. When we get to the next agenda, probably most of the comments are going to be on item number 7. We will recommend that we move that item up first, take that item, then take number 6 second, and then look at the rules last, so that we do not sort of waste the time of the audience if they're here for an item. So I wanted to get that housekeeping note in there, but able to answer any questions you may have on the proposal in front of you for this agenda, the special agenda, the yoga contract instructor. And one further note, unfortunately, the instructor was not able to make it today, but again, we did not want to push it off for another month.
And just a question. Currently, Therese, she's doing yoga classes right now, like active classes?
Not at the community center.
Oh.
I'm not sure if she's active. We don't believe she's active anywhere here in town.
I see retirees are mentioned on here. I'm just curious, does she normally gauge into a certain age group?
There's been some discussion about kind of targeting seniors, but that has not been formalized. Meaning, I think keeping options open was part of the desire for this class, but there was some sort of target. It's definitely 18 and older, so adults, but it hasn't been narrowed down specifically to seniors.
Are there any other comments from the commissioners? Seeing none, is there a move to accept or not accept the request?
I don't know how to say this. Is there like some kind of conflict with our current yoga instructor where she's now then offering, I mean, it's different times, but then you have the same, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it a lot. Is there a way that, what did I write down? I know, again, we've talked about how people are maybe not, it's not the most fun to apply for a scholarship, but can anyone apply for those scholarships? I can't remember. Are they only for, any program or youth only?
Yeah.
Youth, okay.
Youth, and you have to verify income, right, for those scholarships. So yeah, good question about, the conflict with the existing instructor. We understand that the two have talked. We understand that the existing instructor at the community center does not have capacity. I cannot 100% confirm that. And that there has been receptiveness to additional classes, especially at a different time. But again, I can't verify that 100%. So yeah, I mean, I think that is a good question. Just another question that might be had up here is schedule. One of the things that we really wanted to look at is any impact it would have on existing programs, because not only do we have the instructor programs, but we have senior groups that are in not only the senior room, but kind of use other rooms during the day. We wanted to make sure it doesn't have impact on anyone who wants to set up on a Saturday for an event that they've paid for, if they want to set up on a Friday. So those things we will still have to just iron out and make sure the schedule does not step on any of those issues. But those are the things that we've looked at.
Is it the same instruction of yoga type? So for example, do they do vinyasa at the other class and then this yoga fitness is not the same type? Are they offering completely different?
Yeah, different yoga
instructions
types.
and stuff? Okay.
Yep. And maybe depending on, I've heard a reference from, I don't know if it's Terry or Terry, even like kind of focusing on a chair yoga. I know there's chair yoga at the library on occasion, and kind of if there's enough seniors, kind of focusing on that level of yoga.
If it's not done through like the normal channels, then would the city then still get 25%? How would it be tracked and so forth?
Yeah, so one of the things that we set up is the actual cost, and therefore we can kind of monitor the 25%. If there's a free will offering, we're going to have to figure out how that works. Of course, we trust and think everyone will do the right thing. But yeah, there's a little bit of a logistical issue with the free will offering component.
The proposal that she filled out, or Dana Smith filled out, has different amount offerings than what's on the agenda as well. Like the original proposal is 10 per class and 8 for retirees. Is there a reason that we adjusted?
We didn't adjust in subsequent conversations. I think there was a morphing of the concept of the idea. In fact, when it came before us, it was not a free will offering, and so it's sort of adjusted over time. And our most recent conversation, because of, I think, classes in Oakdale that are had, is they offer, or they charge $5 a class. The kind of target is free will offering, but $5 a class is what would be sort of asked.
If there's no other comments or questions from the commission, someone like to make a motion to approve or deny the request?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the request here for the yoga instructor, Tari. Do we have a second motion?
A second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. With that, the
Maybe I just want to ask for any opposed, just for the record.
does anybody if you don't agree, say nay. All right, hearing none, the motion passes. With that, that brings us to the end of the City of Escalon Recreation Commission special meeting ending at 6:38. You need to pause and restart the recording? Same recording.
Keep going. And I think at your discretion, we can forego the flag salute and the roll call, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, I call the City of Escalon Recreation Commission meeting of March 5th at 6:39 PM. We will skip the flag salute and roll call, as that was done at the special meeting. And we'll move forward with the consent calendar. The first one, approve the minutes from the Recreation Commission meeting of February 5th, 2025.
A motion to approve them.
We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a second. Approve the minutes for February 2nd, 2025. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All who oppose, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. With that, we'll move on to staff communications. Number 2, monthly recreation update.
Thank you, Chair. We'll be brief in this one for this meeting. As we normally do, we provide a recreation update. We go through the 4 sports and the instruction programs, provide you details on numbers, that sort of thing. So those are in the agenda for your reference. If there are any questions, we can answer those. If not, we can move on to the meat of the meeting.
With that said, we'll move on to administrative matters. There was a request from staff to move agenda item number 7 to agenda item number 3. Does anybody have any issues with that or problems with that?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda 7, that now is agenda number 3. Agenda items request from Recreation Commissioner Chair Danny Trejo and Commissioner Matthew Showalter.
Thank you, Chair. I'll lead in and then turn it over to the requesting members. Our process states that any member of the commission or public can request an item, come before the commissions, the Recreation Commission or the Planning Commission, as well as the City Council. For a Recreation Commissioner in this case, it needs to be supported by 2 commissioners and then the form filled out. As you can see in your agenda package, we did receive the form from Chair Trejo and Commissioner Showalter, really to discuss the retained consultant for the Recreation Baseball Softball League, as well as, kind of looking at probably just, the overall program. And again, I assume some of the comments in the audience will be on this program. I can share sort of in, the request is really to look at the contract with the consultant. I can share that the consultant has notified us that probably in everyone's best interest to part ways. So he has notified us of that. I would say more informally than formally. There hasn't been anything written yet, but we have got indication that after opening day, sort of part ways. So I know that was kind of the specific request, but I also know there are other comments about some of the decisions, the communication, the scheduling, all of that. So perhaps this is the time to talk about all of those issues.
Thank you. And for this agenda item, I was thinking, just to ensure that we navigate through it correctly, I was going to speak to the request and then bring it to the commissioners for comments and questions that you may have, or maybe your own experiences with this agenda item. And then I was going to bring it back to staff if there was any question or comments you'd want to add to it. And then from there, we'll bring it to the audience for their comments from there. But starting off with this agenda item, I do want to say, even though Todd's not here, that this request isn't anything I would consider as a personal attack towards him. I've interacted with Todd, many times, whether it's the coaches' meetings or the draft process, all these different situations. Even when he's come out here and spoke to the program about getting us into the county league, and each time, he was respectful, he was professional, and even in times it was a little contentious, he always seemed to have a high emotional IQ. But also, too, had a good baseball knowledge. And so with that, I do want to point that out, that this isn't a question of his character, but more just on the result, on his performance specifically. And then also, too, we do understand that when this came up to the Recreation Commission to accept having Todd Davis as part of the lead at the recreation baseball program, and then even council as well approved him to be part of the program, be contracted out. Part of the premise and information we had at the time was this was going to make the baseball program better. And so with that information, and reflecting back on it, I think that was the right decision to make back then with the information that was presented to the commission and also the council. And because that's something that the parents and coaches, even the Recreation Commission and council, they all wanted to see an improvement, and this is how it was presented to us. However, based on the results, that hasn't been it. And I'd like here to share those experiences, but I'm going to share them from my perspective as a coach from the minors division, and just share some of the issues we've had, just to show that, just comparing from this year to last year, that there has been a decline in quality in terms of the service that we received in the baseball programs and an increase of issues that we've had. The first issue that we had was the evaluations that we had for baseball that ranged from the rookies all the way to the majors. One of the things we had last year was we had Melinda Walker as someone there that was facilitating the evaluation part for softball. We also had Rodney Cook that was there for the baseball boys doing the evaluation. And so they ran the evaluations, and the coaches kind of just saw the skills that were being displayed, and they took their notes from there. And it went really well. I thought, I wasn't there to see Melinda, but I did see there what Rodney was doing. He did an excellent job. And so it went really well. And then afterwards, you took your sheets, how you evaluated players, and you had a chance to calibrate that. So if you're going to rank your players and how you're going to draft them, you had that opportunity. And it went well. This year it was a little different, where when we showed up as coaches to the evaluations, we weren't notified that we were going to be the ones running the evaluations. And if we didn't know, it would have been okay. I think the coaches could have banded together, have one person be the point person. But to be in the moment, just being said, all right, hey, you're running it, there was challenges with that, whether having the right equipment or having the right process. But really shooting from the hip wasn't really the best method to do that. And even it was, maybe for the majors and minors, we were able to see what happened with the rookies, and we were able to kind of learn from that and maybe make the best of it. But also, too, those divisions are a lot smaller. But with the rookies, there's a lot of kids, and so that became a really big challenge for the rookie coaches to really make the most of these evaluations. And one of the comments I received from one of the coaches was that they only really got to see maybe 10% of the kids and evaluate them. And if that's the case, they really didn't serve the purpose that we had for the evaluations. So it did fall short, especially with my expectation was that either Todd or somebody from his staff would have led the evaluations so the coaches can just watch and really just take notes of it, but that wasn't the case. And also too, when I think about last year, the amount of people that were there to run it was about almost 4 or 5 people. We had Recreation Commission there to check people in, to register them. I think staff already made prepaid labels that we can put on. And then again, we had Melinda Walker and Rodney Cook. And so there was a team there. And with Todd doing that just by himself, and also focusing more on just registering kids in and getting them signed up, it kind of fell short of expectations compared to last year. Another issue was that the draft. So typically sometimes we don't always do evaluations. Most sports we don't. But when we do have a draft, we do go to the community center. There's a room there called the senior room. And so we'll go in there with our specific time slot and a table, and we'll have to go through the draft process. And there's also a staff member that's there that helps us walk us through the process of how do you draft. And also, too, I feel they do a good job of keeping the honest person honest. So we're going through the process, when you may have a kid frozen and how to go there and back. But here, right after evaluations, we were asked to do the draft. And that came a little surprise. I know before we came to the evaluation, there was an email that was sent out saying the draft will follow right after. But it was a little challenging just logistically as well as we tried to find a place to even draft. And so we're going into the snack bar, and some other parents are going to the playground area. It was a challenge to be out there, and there was no one there from staff or Todd Davis to verify that the process was going correctly. And in addition, that also seemed kind of off as well, was that Todd was telling to the coaches that when you do your draft, you do it like a snake, but do 2 at a time, which is a little unusual, especially for those who do any kind of, let's say, for example, like fantasy football draft, or you've been in drafts in other recreation sports. You typically do 1 kid at a time. You do a snake draft, and that process usually makes it the most fair. And so it just kind of threw me off that he was doing that, because some of it, especially I think about the feedback that we had, it wasn't so much that there was severe issues with how things were being administered or how the process was. It was just improvement of how to administer that process, not just change things. If there was a need for improvement. So that was definitely disappointing. The other thing that we did have as well was, there are requests to move kids up. So if say you have a kid that's in the rookies, you have the option to ask to be moved up to the minors. And I thought it was a good idea to have the players who do want to move up to go to the evaluation so the coaches can see their skill set and see if they are ready for the next division. So that was a good plan. I think that the timing, the way they had it, was a little bit off, where you started with the youngest kids and go with the older kids. Because if you had, let's say, an 8-year-old that you wanted him as a parent to move up to the minors, they would have to go to both evaluations, the rookies and the minors. And then after the evaluations for the minors, then your kid would find out if he is going to be able to stick with the minors or is going to be asked to stay with the rookies. However, with the draft falling right after the evaluations, if you're a rookies coach and you're doing the draft, that's at the same time as the evaluation for the minors. So then you don't actually know if that kid is going to be eligible or not to be draftable, right? Is he going to be in minors? Is he going to be in the rookies? We don't know. And so that wasn't a good plan. So I think that the idea was good. It was just would have been better if it was reversed, where you have the oldest kids to begin with, and then from there, for example, if that 8-year-old wants to try for the minors, they'd go through the evaluations, and if they get told no, then they know to go to the rookies. Evaluation would have been right after. So that would have been a better process for that. But with that process, with the minors, we did have 4 players that did request to be moved up, and based on those players, we saw there was 2 that weren't ready for the minors division, not just because of skill set, but just safety. There was one player that was out there kind of not paying attention and actually got hit with the ball in the back. And so it kind of just shows that sometimes with these, as you get with these older divisions where kids can hit a little harder, throw a little harder, you really got to pay attention because you can get hit. But those 2 players that we recommended not to move up, when we saw was the rest were still moved up, which was a surprise, even though the coaches asked them not to move them up. And other things too, when I think about practice and game schedules, there's been a lot of issues with that. One of the ones that kind of come to mind is how we had the rookies scheduled to have half their games in the field B and the other half in field C. And logistically, it seems like there was enough time slots to have all the games in field C, so I was a little perplexed on why that was done. But a bigger issue was that as you have these games, let's say on field B, they already were slotted for practice times for the minors division. So now you had situations where you had minors practices being double booked with the rookies games. In addition to that, the minors division, as I understand it, I'm sorry, field B as I understand it, they have 3 different slots where you can move the bases, the smallest one being for the minors. And so to have the rookies play on there using the minors where the bases are would be very challenging. And so the bases there for the minors is about 60 feet apart. And even for some of the minor kids, that's a long throw, especially if they're going from third to first or from home plate to second. That's a difficult throw to make. And so just logistically, for the field, it wasn't really set up for the kids at the age groups from 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. So there's issues with that. The other two that I feel that kind of also sums up some of the issues we had with Todd was I felt like it wasn't just the lack of oversight, but also lack of foresight. So when we had a coaches meeting, that we would select our game times and practice times. And so as we're going through this process, and again, going from the minors' perspective, we went through that. Coaches would go out, pick out their game time and practice time that they wanted from the slots. They had to choose from Monday through Friday in the evenings, and they had all day Saturday to choose from. However, when it got to the last person to choose, which was the team, the Atlanta Braves, the only slots that were available at the time were Saturdays. And so for him so he was only left to select his practice time and game time on the same day. And so if he's having home games, then he couldn't have practice because that'd be too much to have a 2-hour practice and a game at the same time. And that's where I think a lot as you're administrating a program, you kind of go through these different scenarios. What could happen? And I think there's a lack of foresight where Todd didn't really understand how someone to make it the short end of the stick with the way he was administering the schedules. It also too seems like Todd also didn't understand some of the needs that the coaches wanted in terms of having to practice in the weekdays, but games on Saturdays. Didn't really understand that structure and how to make that work. Also, another issue, and I think one of the biggest issues that we had was being put into the Bell Passy program. Definitely do understand that there's with some of the divisions there isn't enough teams to really maybe make your own league, so you do have to maybe join a league, whether it's Oakdale or partner with Riverbank or Ripon, or in this situation it was the minors and majors that was sent to Bell Passy. And the majors were able to get into the recreation program that Bell Passy had. And hearing one of the games that happened on Monday, it looks like our teams are somewhat even with their teams on that. However, the minors were put in with travel teams, and what I think was a concern from a lot of parents and coaches, just for not just for our ability to compete with them, but also safety with that. And one of the things I think there was kind of issues, might have been some miscommunication between what this league is. It's called the Kaya Come As You Are League. Maybe Bell Passy didn't really articulate well or explain well what that league was for, but it really is for travel teams. Any travel team can join. But some of the feedback that the board was saying from Bell Passy is that these teams are somewhat competitive, similar to recreation teams. However, from doing some investigating and speaking to Darren Whitney from Bell Passy board, he's the vice president there. From speaking to him, he actually only knew about half the teams that were in the Kaya League, and so he wasn't familiar with all of them, if they're really how competitive they were. So that's concerning that he wasn't aware of those teams. The other two, some of these teams that they have would be teams like NorCal Valley, and they were one of the top teams in the area for travel baseball. And maybe in this league we may not be playing against our A team. However, when you have a team like that and kids are trying out, and let's say, for example, 100 kids are trying out, most of these kids are probably going to be pretty good at trying out. And so they may have, let's say, the first 12 top kids maybe put it together as an A team. Then the next top 12 will be the B team. Then the following 12 are the C team. So even the C team is still like a premium team. And even if they weren't, when you put any team together and they're playing for a year or two together, you can get really good. Even if there's some shortfalls with abilities, just playing together is really good. And with our league, the way we started, when we start practice in the middle of February, some kids, on average, I would say maybe they get 2 practices before the first game. And so that's barely enough to get ready. And it's really not towards probably the mid-season or end of the season where you really got kids kind of playing together and really working together. And then to go against teams where, not only are, try it out and made a team that can compete against it for 2 years, it's just doesn't seem like the right environment as we're competing with. In addition, too, one of the things that was concerning, too, was one of the teams that are in the division was actually the all-star team for Belpassy last year. So City of Escalon, for baseball teams, we do have like an all-star team that we put together at the end of the season. And Belpassy does the same thing with the rec kids. They put together a all-star team. Well, that all-star team stuck together, and they actually joined this Kaya League. So we're playing against an all-star team with that. And just from my memory from coaching last year's all-star team, our Escalon all-star team was phenomenal. I mean, the hitting was great, the throwing, the maturity. I mean, these kids were just awesome. The pitching, everything about it. And to just imagine if we had that team playing against, just normal rec team, it's not a fair competition. And it's just all these issues that kind of came up. And maybe it's not fair. Maybe it's not fair to give 100% blame to Todd Davis. However, when I think about what was the reason, what's the catalyst in this that really made this whole program worse than last year, especially as I'm going through almost every single item that we've gone through in this baseball program, why it's been so much worse. And I do believe that Todd Davis was that catalyst that kind of brought that, some of the issues that we've had. But again, that was my experience. And because of that, I do think it's best for the city that we do remove Todd from doing administrative duties and maybe instead use his baseball knowledge or areas that he could shine in. But for seeing him in the coaches' meetings and some of the programs, how he administered them, these skills, administrative skills, are not in his wheelhouse, and he should not continue to administer them. So with that said, I know it's a long spiel, so I'd like to, again, let the commissioners here ask questions, provide comments from their experience. We'll bring it back to staff if there's any comments or questions you would like to add, and then we'll bring it to the audience to share their experiences from their perspective.
I have no problem with what you proposed. His whole thing is the reason why I volunteered to join this, because I didn't agree with a single thing he brought in front of anybody. I just want to know, how do we go forward? Are we kind of locked into playing with Belpassy and playing with NorCal Valley? Because you're right, if they're playing with travel ball teams, they're gonna get hurt. That was never the intention, and that was always something. I remember people at all these meetings suggested hey, we got to be careful for this. Why we're not going to play travel ball teams. We're a rec program, and so right now my biggest concern is what do we do with these kids that signed up to play baseball? But the regards to Todd Davis, I would have no problem with removing him completely and saying thank you for your time and see you later. So that's my opinion.
Thank you.
Just speaking on the evaluations, I saw the disorganization during those, especially for the rookies. And then hearing from parents and about the scheduling and safety concerns ultimately is what was my biggest concern. And so then I'm a supporter of removing him from administrative responsibilities.
My understanding is he's already stepped down from said responsibilities, correct?
Correct.
So my biggest question then moving forward is how do we work on fixing the current schedule conflicts for the kids would be my main.
And I think that is something we should do for this agenda item, is talk about the solutions. But I think before we get to the solutions, we should, I think, understand all the problems that we have. So I think we'll right now share the issues that we have staff, if there's any issues or comments to make, hear the issues brought from the audience. That we have, we've heard all the comments and issues, and now we know what all the problems are and what we can do to resolve that. If there's no other comments from the commission, before we bring the audience to speak, any comments or questions from staff?
I'll just touch on there's nothing really to touch on the first several things that were raised. The Belpassi decision, I think, is one that we should touch on. As the contract with the consultant was moving forward, council specifically stated our desire to stay in the Oakdale Baseball Softball Association program, OBSA. As we were coordinating with OBSA, they got to a point where they said they could not accommodate the majority of our older groups. As you know, in the younger groups, T-ball and rookies, we have enough teams where we can play internally. So we don't have to go outside. As you get older, there are less and less teams. And so historically, we have partnered with OBSA so that our small divisions, 2 or 3 teams, can play other teams. As I mentioned, as we were going through that process, OBSA, relatively late in the process, not necessarily their fault, there's more to it, but said they could not accommodate the majority of our older teams. And so, Todd, the consultant, and staff were looking for other options. We found the Modesto Girls Softball League, I believe it's called, and they could accommodate all our teams. Even an older group, and there were some concerns about the older group, and so that group ended up going to Rainbow. But they could also accommodate, we found Belpassi that could accommodate all of the baseball teams that were remaining, that were kind of floundering. Before that, we checked with Ripon, Manteca, Lathrop. We had already heard County League was not an option. And Salida. We first checked with Riverbank to see if they would be willing to just play with us, just Escalon and Riverbank. They unfortunately said they wanted to not travel, and therefore this year they wanted to just stay internal. So a lot of options sort of running, right, that we'd gone through and sort of running out of time. The Belpassi option, of course, the desire would have been both groups to be in the rec league. Belpassi only had the option of this sort of come as you are league for the minor division. Kind of went through our channels. It was green lights, and so that was the decision that was made, because there would have been nowhere else to go, and kids almost literally couldn't have played each other. We have a 13 to 15-year-old group. They have one team in that division. They would not have been able to play at all. Our majors have 3 teams, and so, playing each other internally it doesn't work at 3 teams. You need a minimum of 4 teams, and 4 teams is not, as fun as it could be. We did, and I know there will be concerns on this, we did go through the process with Belpassi to understand what that rec league as best as we could. And, we took things at face value, and we will see how that materializes. But it was explained to us that at this younger age group, rec is it's dying. Not as many people are playing rec, and people are deferring to go to these travel programs. And so it was expressed to us that this is as commiserate to rec as it gets. These are newly formed teams. These are C teams. And that's how it was expressed to us. And so there was a certain comfort level that that was going to be a workable solution. Now, you know, if people say they've done further research and they know or whatever, then obviously that's different information, right? But that was, you know, sort of the decision-making process that transpired as we were going into, like, you know, early February, right? League started in a month as we were getting into early and kind of that second week in February, making these decisions. So that's just, you know, kind of lay that groundwork there, and still willing to take any comments, complaints, concerns that we receive.
Okay. Thank you. So then from here, we'll go ahead and ask the audience to come up. And if you have comments, if you can just state your name. And then once we hear all the comments from the audience, then we'll bring it back to the commission and staff to discuss solutions to the program in front of you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Sanchez. For those of you that don't know, I was on the Rec Commission last year when this was brought before us. You kind of calmed me down with some of your speech a little bit because I was stewing on this all day. So if I appear agitated, it's not necessarily one person in this room or necessarily anyone in this room, just the situation. But I've got to say, this is kind of a mess. And this is not what on the Rec Commission we voted for, and when it went before City Council, this isn't what they voted for either. So I don't know, as I'm going through the agenda tonight, item 3 says, quote, adoption of the Bell Passy rules, but I'm curious why it doesn't say consider joining the Bell Passy League, because no one ever voted on that. And I can't really speak to how it's going to work for the majors and the 13-15 division. I hear that for the majors it might work out because it's more of a recreational league. But for the minors, I agree, this is a disaster. When we did this with recreation, this was originally going to be with Todd Davis helping us, and it was going to be the Stanislaus County League, and it was all recreation. We were very adamant about that. The parents wanted that, and I think there was some confusion that there was a travel element because we may have to go to other fields, but the level of play was going to be recreation level. And when this got to City Council, it was a similar thing. They were concerned about that. I don't know if we necessarily gave them enough time to really work on the nuts and bolts of this. So when they approved this, they wanted to keep it with the Oakdale League. And we've been doing that for years. I'm not sure what happened with the whole Oakdale thing. I'm kind of curious to see. But, you know, I was even looking through the agenda items, and page 62 of when City Council met on November 4th, it said that Escalon Baseball and Softball Recreation League would remain with the Oakdale Baseball Softball League. I just don't know where it comes from that we're going to be adopting the Bell Passy rules without having a vote on joining Bell Passy from either the Rec Commission or City Council. So I'm not sure where that came from. And I even looked at the motion. I quoted, I don't know if I necessarily need to read it, but Councilmember Stroman was the one who initially made the motion, and in it there was no indication that it would change to a travel level. Mayor Hagan had, he added to it, but it once again did not change in terms of the level of play. It passed unanimously. It did not pass rec unanimously when we did it, but nowhere was this ever going to be a travel ball level. So I don't know. And I agree that this can kind of be a safety concern for some of the minors. I don't know if one solution would potentially be, you know, for the minors, just jerk them out of this as soon as possible. And we have 4 teams. Last year we kind of did that, played each other. Would it be nice if we had more teams? Yeah, but I think it's something that we can make work. So as this comes up in the meeting tonight, as you're going through item 3, I might ask that you guys reject that and kind of go back to the drawing board, at least for the minors. I don't know so much for the majors in the 13 through 15, but at least for the minors, I think that's a disaster, and that's got to be reworked.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Danny, you kind of stole my thunder as well. So I'm going to read what I wrote anyways, so I don't get lost in the shuffle, and I don't want to add. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jamie Pierce, mother to 3 boys, 2 of which play baseball for the rec league here in town. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge that everyone involved in the following had the best of intentions for this baseball-softball season. Secondly, I'm only speaking from my perspective and the things I've learned within the last 24 hours, maybe in the last 6 hours, and how this season has basically just unfolded and unraveled. With all that being said, I was so excited for my son to have a level up of play by joining County Rec League. County Rec would have my son traveling without being committed to a travel ball team and the ability to be challenged, but not discouraged. The parents came down hard on that County Rec at the meetings, and a hybrid was since approved by council on November 4th to pay Mr. Davis $16,000 as a consultant to better our baseball program. The outlined scope of Mr. Davis's work can be found in the agenda packet of the November 4th meeting. I'm not going to read out the scope, but I do question how many marks he hit of what he laid out from November to February to March of what he actually was supposed to be doing. To date, I believe he has been paid out $8,000, which I'm hoping he will forfeit back to the city. Once council has approved the contract with Mr. Davis, OBSA Oakdale, and RYBSA Riverbank, it became an issue, and we can no longer play with them. I personally, and you touched on that, on those issues, I personally spoke with the OBSA president today, and they're very disappointed in how they're being portrayed, as for the past several years, Oakdale and Riverbank have depended on Escalon to have more teams to play, just like we depend on them. From their perspective, Mr. Davis wouldn't allow OBSA to fully integrate Escalon into their schedule and aborted the idea without staff or Mr. Davis presenting the change to council, as Kevin touched on. As parents and coaches, we were completely blindsided with Belpassi, but went along with it until we received the schedule on February 26th, which was not, I believe, not that long ago from what I could check in my emails, and learned that not only are we not playing Oakdale Riverbank, which we, again, kind of knew, but we're okay with just playing Escalon versus Escalon, but we were playing in the Kaya League, which consists of travel ball teams. Important to note, in the agenda item, it said that it was verified, of course, that they did speak with someone and that it was going to be okay. I also spoke with someone at Belpassi who runs their BP Select, which is the all-star team you were speaking about, and he said that it was not, I don't know who spoke with him, if it was the city or Todd, I don't know if he was involved in what capacity through the channels, but it was not, we were not forthcoming with the level of play that our kids had. Because, I mean, we have kids with challenges, learning disabilities, all the things on our teams, and again, that C team is an all-star team. So he also advised that we back out of this league. We have a large concern for the safety of our boys, and he did say that there is an A team in there, so that would be the very highest level. And with the rules vastly different than the previously adopted Babe Ruth rules, our kids are going to get hurt. We had a scrimmage with Danny yesterday. It was ugly. It was not fun. Additionally, we don't want the children to give up on baseball, and that's the most important part here, because they will be obliterated by these teams. And on a weekly basis, it's also my understanding that Belpassi is charging $5 a head for entry fees per game. And that's just hearsay. I have not verified that. To make this move along, please consider pulling our minor boys out of the Kaya League and let us use our original practicing game times to schedule the games within the coaches. I have confirmed with OBSA and a couple surrounding teams that they are willing to play with us as extra games this season and are still looking forward to coming in agreement for next year. My husband and I, Anthony, are volunteering for a baseball committee and have secured 2 as up to 3 other parents as of tonight. We will act as liaisons to attend board meetings and fix the most crucial issues within the baseball program. We recognize that the issue is not going to be resolved in one baseball season, but we need to set a foundation and reestablish trust in our community so that the program can be rebuilt and hopefully someday We can grow to be self-sufficient and will no longer have to rely on OBSA or others to provide a broader schedule. We're hoping that by organizing a committee, we can move towards that goal. To end, I am very concerned with the lack of communication and hope the city staff can answer as to what went wrong. And to finally answer to Danny, to respond, we wouldn't be searching for baseball consultants if we had a stronger program. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Well, Jamie stole my thunder. I'm actually probably the oldest parent here. My kids have been playing baseball for 16 years. I have 2 boys, and so they've long been out of Escalon Rec. But I wanted to offer a perspective anyway, because I think that it's important. We, as a family, decided to take on a team, so we're coaching a minors baseball team this year. So I sponsored. My husband is the head coach, and my boys, 21 and 18, are the assistant coaches. And they're having the best time out there. So my comments are kind of twofold. The first part is with regard to communication. I have been a part of Escalon since my boys were 4 years old. I've been a part of Escalon since before my boys were born. They've been playing sports for Escalon Rec since they were 4 years old. And communication has always been a challenge, and that's not one person's fault. But this year, and I've been removed from it for several years because my boys are older, but this year has been extremely challenging. Some of it has already been touched on, but one of the big things was when we signed up and we were given our dates and our times, we were told practices and games were on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And 6 weeks after the draft, we get the schedule, and our games are on Wednesdays and Fridays. And when you have 3 adults, no skin in the game, not playing, that are working their work schedules and their lives, and for 6 weeks they've been told one thing, and they've worked the whole baseball season around that, and then it's completely different, it's kind of a big deal. The second thing was we found out from our parents, not from the city, not from Todd. We found out from the parents that we were going to be part of the Belpasse League. When our older son finished the majors and went to 13, 15, there weren't even enough boys for one team in Escalon. And so we had no choice but to leave because he's a very strong ball player, knew he wanted to play in high school, and he had to play somewhere. It only made sense for us to take our younger son with us. So we went to Belpasse. So I speak from having played Escalon Rec 8 years and Belpasse for 6 years. I know the caliber of players that are out there. And if we were playing strictly Belpasse teams, I think that we'd be fine. We breed athletes in Escalon. We breed them. These kids are not to be looked down upon for their athletic ability. These are some of the strongest athletes in the state of California, and I'm proud to have raised 2 of them. So if that's who we were playing, I think we'd be fine. I think it would be an adjustment. My boys adjusted to it. Lots of Escalon boys went out there, they adjusted to it. But when you look at the schedule and you see you're playing teams like the Central Valley Assassins and the NorCals and they have that name for a reason, and that's not putting them down. But you're right, Danny, when you have an A, B, and C team in the top 100 kids that are trying out, you have 33%, the top 33% of those 100 kids that are playing, and some of our boys have never played before. These boys, some of them are holding a ball for the first time. And so we are their first shot at learning to either love or hate the sport. And if we throw them into that dynamic, they're either going to get hurt, and they might still like it, or they're just going to hate it because they can't compete. So when we were in the minors, when my boys were in the minors here, we only had 4 teams. And we played amongst those 4 teams, and we did fine. They had the best time. Some of the best days my boys have spent have been on those fields out there. They'll tell you. And there's something to be said about that camaraderie that you build. But we also played Riverbank and Oakdale teams. And if you know going into it that that's what you're going to do, then whether you're a coach or you're a parent, you can make that decision based on that. But to be told after the schedule came out by parents, not communicated by the city, not communicated by the consultant, that we're being thrown into a travel league, and we can't even make the decision to take on that coaching ability or walk from it, or these parents have shelled out this money. The kids have already started building relationships. You don't want to pull your kids from the team. They're just starting to form that bond. So there, unfortunately, are kind of a lot of layers to this, and this was opening night tonight. The only reason that some of us are here is because we got rained out. So to scrap the whole program is going to be a shame, but I think that at least at our level, we can salvage it with the 4 teams that we have, and maybe fill in the blanks somewhere else. I'm not really sure what the answer is, but I know that our kids deserve better. Our kids deserve better, our coaches deserve better, you guys deserve better, because you're getting the backlash from it. And I think that there's, we had one conversation with Todd, bless his heart, don't know him personally, but he knows more than he shared with you when he pitched this program. And I know that because I've spent 6 years out at Belpassi. And anybody that has spent 1 season out there knows that what we were told and what we are being given are 2 completely different things. And I just don't want these kids to get discouraged. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
I was really hoping someone else would jump up here. So I'm Kayla Jefferson. I have 3 boys who play rec baseball here in Escalon. And everyone really has spoke to a lot of the concerns that I came here with tonight. But one concern that hasn't been addressed is the role that we are trying to play as parents in building good humans. And my son is, I love him, bless his heart. He's not the most athletic human. He tries sometimes. But at the end of the day, I want him to know that he made a commitment to this team, and we don't back down from our commitments. Unfortunately, by him playing at Belpassi, it is a major safety concern, and he recognizes that himself and has shared with both of us that he's concerned for his own safety. He was hit multiple times last year by pitches from a rec league pitchers, and he survived, and we walked through it. But I am concerned about him getting hit by a pitch at a much higher velocity, and he is as well. So as a parent, I'm having to navigate, son, we made a commitment, and we're gonna stick through our commitments, and yes, I'm also concerned for your safety. So I just wanted to bring that point up because I think that's something that parents are having to navigate and not something we expected to have to navigate when we signed up for rec baseball. I agree that I think bringing minors back to Escalon is definitely doable. I have heard that we have the same number of kids playing this year as we did last year. However, we do have one last team. Last year, we did play in Escalon. The rookies coaches, 11 of them, got together on a Sunday and made their own schedule. I'm sure that the minors coaches, knowing several of them personally, would probably be willing to do the same if that's something that the city needed. I'm happy to facilitate that. At this point, I'm unable to commit to coaching a 3rd team because we are simply just tapped out with 2. But I think that it is still possible with 4 teams. So I recommend, like many others have, that we consider bringing the minors back to Escalon, playing only Escalon teams.
Thank you, Kayla.
Hello, my name is Randy Waters. I'm a minor league coach for the Braves this year. It's my first year. It's been a great time so far. So I'm not going to take a ton of time reiterating what I think everybody has already heard. Safety is #1 concern here. I do just want to touch on what Jamie said for a second, which I thought was a great idea of having a group of people outside of the council that are able to give kind of a perspective from the citizen side, I guess, you know? And one thing as a coach, which if you notice in this crowd, there's multiple coaches here tonight. I think that a more collaborative experience with the coaches where maybe some type of meeting prior to the season starting, prior to opening day, that we can maybe hear what's going on behind the scenes, give our opinion, maybe give our perspective a little bit, I think would be really important because I do think that the information got out a little too slow. So that would be great to just get a little bit more collaboration with the coaches that have already dedicated their time and are more than likely willing to do that. So really that's just my only point, is just to information would be out a lot faster, and I think that it'd be a much more collaborative experience. Also, one other point that I'd like to make is that if we want to bring more teams to Escalon, right, I think one thing that we can do is we can elevate the fields that we're playing on, right? Belpassy, I've heard, does not have a good field. I don't think that there's many good fields in the area, and I actually think that we might be able to flip the script here a little bit and actually get Oakdale, Ripon, Riverbank coming to us if we're able to provide a really quality experience for their team. So something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Hello, name's Steve Largent. Got some stuff typed up here I'd like to kind of get out in the open. There are a lot of people right now unhappy with this recreation department and programs. Did a lot of reflection, a lot of thinking to try to kind of bring some things to the light, and hopefully everybody can kind of understand where I'm coming from. I think what we have here is a failure to communicate. There's been a failure on a lot of people's part to communicate to coaches, parents, players, community members on what the expectations of our recreational programs are. And this lack of communication has led to factions that have, I'm a history teacher, so factions, for lack of a better term, have been created who are perturbed by other factions, and it's time for everybody to kind of put their cards on the table. When I'm speaking mostly talking about the baseball program. That's what I'm most familiar with. It's what I've been involved in for 4 years now. So it's kind of where I have my mind when I laid these things out. There are people who would like for the rec leagues to be competitive. Scores, standings, stats, playoffs, trophies, kind of your prototypical vintage 1970s, 80s, 90s Little Leagues type sports. I think this group of people has become unhappy with the other faction of parents who are looking for something to keep their children busy and involved in social activities. Drop your kid off at practice, run a few errands, I'll be back and pick you up in an hour. There's a group of people who want to be ultra competitive and think that their son or daughter is going to have their name called in the future by the New York Yankees or receive a full-ride scholarship to the UConn women's basketball program. There's a group of people who have some children who are more competitive than other children that they have, who have joined travel ball or club teams, but they're also seeking competitive fun developmental leagues for their other children who have a safe place to develop fundamentally and have a fun place to play. There's a group of people who are concerned and mayhaps even annoyed with the number of Escalon kids playing in these Escalon rec leagues who are not enrolled in the Escalon Unified School District and are on track to take part and play for rival high school teams. This being said, a lot of these teams, with the high numbers of kids playing out of town on track to attend perhaps Ripon Christian or Central Catholic or anywhere else, a lot of these kids are coached by very active, very good coaches. And I'm not trying to slight them at all, because those people do a fantastic job coaching their teams. Another issue. I played in these rec leagues 25, 30 years ago. The facilities that are being used are the same fields with the same structure that was being played with in the 90s. The population when I was playing of this town was about 5,000 people. There's about 2,500, 3,000 more people in this town, and we're running out the same archaic system from back then. All of these factions I have mentioned above, I do not blame nor feel any of them are more correct or incorrect with one another. It's okay to belong to any one of these factions or groups, but I think it's time to recognize that the fundamental issue has created a rotten, broken recreation system and department, and it has become time for everyone to put their cards on the table and have progressive, active discussions and conversations to fix this issue. I don't have an answer on how to fix it, but I do know that a rec department should be focused on player safety, player development, creating a community-wide program focused on the basics of fundamentals and sportsmanship, big word, that strengthens the bond between players, classmates, neighbors, and community members. I listened to a few major coaches come up here and talk about playing with just 4 teams. I think that's a fantastic solution. I think that that's more than capable of being done. When I think back of playing here, going to school on Mondays to find out, hey, did you guys beat Rossetti's Market? Did somebody beat C.T. Brayton and Sons? Like that was big. That was big time. It didn't have to be the end all be all. It didn't have to be, fights between coaches in the dugout. If we can figure it out together as a community and move forward towards something to create fun, player development, safe league, there should be no reason why we can't have any success moving forward, but it's got to take communication, clarity, and togetherness. Like we're all in it together, right? Thank you for your guys' time.
Thank you, Steve.
My name is Kevin Hall. Most of you guys know me. I've been around a lot of coaching. I was all for Todd. He talked very well spoken, very knowledgeable about the sport. Unfortunately, he just didn't have the knowledge to put his ideas into a working well. But I think something that did come out of it positive is there's little bits and pieces of it that we can use to improve our baseball. The tryouts were absolutely 100% horrible. I had reached out to him weeks before and asked him what was going on, and he told me, and I was like, that's not going to work. Like, you can't just tell the coaches the day of, like, we're running the thing. Like, at least tell the assistant coaches that they have to do something. But, again, he said, coaches are willing to get together and put that together and make it realistic so it works. And it did work to an extent. The 5 or 10% of kids that we actually got to evaluate, myself and Steve actually had marks on a couple kids that we had no clue who they were, and we ended up actually drafting them, and they're pretty decent little ball players this year. But that's something we can think about. How can we fix that and make it actually work for us next year? Same thing in all of the sports, I think, because we do drafts in every single sport. And I know by the time we get to round 4, people are like, I don't know, that kid's name sounds cool. So if we figure out how we can make that evaluation process more smoothly, and so the coaches can run it, we don't have to pay anybody anything. We're already volunteering our time to be coaches and assistant coaches. And we have more knowledge here than just about any one person that could come in and do it individually. And I think the rookie coaches kind of stepped up and showed that we're willing to work with the city or with anybody and help. Like, all we want is we want our kids to have the most smooth process possible and the most even teams so we can be competitive and play each other on an equal level and battle each other. I think you guys just pick our brains. I know me personally, I've been in club teams in the back side of things and front side of things and coaching, paid coaching side of things. I'm more than willing to help however you guys need help. If questions come about, I know you guys got a committee together. If you guys have questions or if you want somebody else there, I'm willing to volunteer my time. And I also think that it's something that, like we got together and we had a generic schedule together, we put team names on it, and people went through it. But that generic list can be used for any 10-week season, any 9-team season now. All you gotta do is you fill in the team names, autofill, the schedule's done. 10 seconds or whatever. So if you develop that for, 9 teams, 10 weeks, 10 teams, 10 weeks, 8 teams, 10 weeks, it's just an autofill every single season. Here's the teams, draft numbers, teams, whatever, and, I'm sure it'll help with scheduling a little bit to be able to do with that. And I don't know. I think the solution is here. Like, we're all here, we're ready to volunteer to help make the things go together. We don't need to necessarily pay anybody anything extra to do that.
Thank you, Kevin.
How you doing? My name is Sid Ramirez. Kind of had the same experience with the opening day tryouts like everyone else, but as I got closer I'm a majors coach, but as I got closer to my time, I realized that, the way they did it wasn't the most efficient, so I was able to talk to Todd and do it my own way, and we were done assessments and draft in just a little under 2 hours. In the city I lived in before, I was on the board for about 3 years. I've helped with opening day, assessments, field prep, pretty much anything they had, I was a part of. So I know Jamie, is that right? Jamie and I kind of chit-chat a little bit on Facebook about starting a committee, and I'm more than willing to help out. I've already reached out to the board I was previously on, and they're willing to hand us a playbook on how to stand up a league as well. So it's not just us trying to figure it out. We'll have support from the Laguna Youth up in Elk Grove. So it's been around for about 20 years, and in my opinion, it's one of the better run leagues. So I just wanted to put that out there. We wouldn't be out here by ourselves. We have support from another league that is very well established. So if we can, if it's something you'd allow us to do, get this up and going, I'd definitely volunteer my time for it. So. But as far as the play over at Belpasse, I thought we did really well. In our first game, we almost won the game, just lost it in the last inning. Not a big deal, but it's just the first game. Kids are still getting to know each other. So I personally don't see a huge drop in talent between their team and ours. So, but that, again, that's the majors. I know minors having a little bit different situation than mine. So I would like to stay in the Belpasse League, get these kids a little bit more, just a little more experience, a little more with some better play up there. So if that's my request. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm debating whether I say anything because, anyway, consider me a citizen, former rec commission member, and rec is my jam, right? Like, this is what I care about. So there's a couple of things I just want to clarify for the public before you go to a vote to approve the Belpasse rules in the next part of your meeting today. And I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear. There is some communication issues, and I think a lot of it has to do with those communication issues. And you were correct in your opening statement. There was a lack of oversight, lack of foresight, but it doesn't just fall that way. There was a lack of communication, who's doing what, lots of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. So I did want to clarify that Todd did not pitch the program of Belpasse. That was a staff. Staff was searching. Everyone was kind of searching for something that was in the general proximity of Escalon because parents came out and said they don't want to travel so far. They don't want to travel to the county league. And everything we could find was a travel outside. There was talks about Salida League. Salida travels to Tracy. Like, that wasn't going to solve any of those problems. We found Belpasse gratefully, right? It wasn't until today, I've personally been under the impression that we were playing in the rec league with both minors and majors until today. So there is a lack of communication, because I would hope that that would be out there that we were not. So there was some sort of lack of communication or confusion in that, and I'm having a little issue with that. I was not aware of that until now. I had pitched, many parents have pitched today that the minors should play internally with 4 teams. I would like it if council would consider that moving forward, that possibly they come out of that travel team instead of the rec team. I am familiar with Belpassy. They have their rec program. There is that program where you sign up as an individual, ages 3 to 19, you play just like we do. That was the program that I was under the impression that we were in, and it sounds like minors or majors are. Minors have 4 teams. To me, 4 or more, you can play internally. And I really would like you guys to consider that moving forward. You will have a question of whether or not to approve Belpassy rules coming up here tonight. You can split them. You can say, majors, yes, minors, no, and change internally. It's going to be a little bit to make your scheduling. It won't take it's not too much to change your scheduling on one league. And I'm happy to help if anybody needed help. So it was, it was not, and just to end, we are coming out with some good things out of this situation as well. I have evals here. I love doing evaluations. Moving forward, if I knew there was nobody out there doing evaluations, please give me, call me that morning and say, I have nobody doing evaluations out here. There's just coaches. I love doing it. I have been volunteering for 15 years doing it. I didn't want to step on toes and micromanage somebody we had given our faith into. Please, if there's that kind of issue, love to help out on the field, okay? And the other thing, we did have that clinic. We were trying to bring more education to our kids, and I think moving forward, we're actually going to get some great things out of this. I don't see a clinic going away, and we are going to have we have some plans for a fun kind of events going on with our picture day coming up. And so as long as that's still slated to go forward with our field day and that kind of thing, which is on the slate, I think we're going to move forward more knowledgeable of the things that we can bring to Escalon. So moving forward, Todd has stepped down after this weekend. He's going to be doing opening day. We've been working together to do opening day. That's his jam, his productions, so it's going to be great. And so going forward, it's just going to be a communication between staff and recreation and parents. And so hopefully we can all go forward doing that. So please consider moving minors internally. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. I guess it'll be a last call for comments. All right, seeing none, we'll bring back the discussion to staff and the commissioners. So definitely we heard a lot of good ideas, and definitely appreciate, for the folks out here coming out and expressing their opinions, especially how we're coming from different perspectives. So it's nice to see all that and get a better understanding of what we're facing and understand more of a consensus of what direction we want to take to the program. So, but there was a few solutions recommended. I think one of the ones that one most popular one was to take the minor boys out of Belpassy League. I know we mentioned there's only 4 teams, but typically 4 teams is more than enough. Last year we did have 5 teams with roughly the same amount of players. However, when you do have an odd number, you do have double headers or bye weeks. So it's not necessarily that 5 is somehow better than 4. But I think once you have 4, that's a realistic option. So I would like to ask the Recreation Commission staff if they have any concerns with that, or if they do like that idea of pulling the minor boys out of the Commissioner League for Belpassy.
I don't have a problem with it. I would just wonder, would we be able to get some of that money back to pay for the umpires? Because if we're gonna have those 4 teams playing here, I think those kids deserve to have the same umpires and the same things as everybody else. That'd be my thing. And maybe meet with the 4 coaches out of respect for them and figure out a schedule, because it is just 4 teams, what's works best for them, because it sounds like they've been jumped around and thrown through hoops. And, you know, if we have 11 teams, 11 coaches that can get together and figure out a schedule by themselves, I think we owe it to them to sit down and figure out what works for everything and get a little input and try and give them a little control, because they are the ones who are doing the day-to-day work with all the kids. The majors, if they're, in my opinion, if they're in a rec out in Belpassy, I think fantastic. Let it roll for the year. That would be my opinion. But the minors, I would definitely try and get them back here and see if we can recoup some of that money. And, you know, I don't know how that part would work. I don't know, because I know Belpassy's a nonprofit. So I'm not sure how that part would work.
I think that, just add to, I think that would be advantageous to see if we could get some of that money back. If we don't, I think still might be a good idea to take the...
Just take the loss?
Take the loss, if that's the case.
I was eager to just let everyone speak because I think there's been communication issues, and I wanted to hear. I've been writing the process out from the beginning, and I think, as someone had said, Todd sold it very well, but I think there was like key parts of it that were what sold it for me, and it was kind of the bringing back the magic to the baseball program. So without saying too much, because we've all said enough, I think that in the end, let's hope that we can all come together, because we all really do want the same thing, and the goal was to make the rec program great for our kids. We have a lot of resources in the room that help out, and I think we're now seeing that if we all come together, we can do this. I think the goal was to have this great program, allow our kids opportunities, and then to hopefully build our own committee and be self-reliant and grow the program. So in the end, maybe unfortunately this is how it's going to happen, but I do hope that we continue to all keep coming and keep volunteering, because that's what it is going to take, so that we don't have another mishap. If we all work together, I think we can make this work. I think that some of us had spoken and were wondering if you might be open to moving to pooling, and so I'm excited that that was brought up and out there. I definitely am for that and would be willing to help with whatever needed, but based on what I've heard and what I've seen, I do believe that is going to be the best. We played flag football with 3 teams, and it was interesting, but it was a great time, and the girls loved it. I loved it. I had so much fun, and I think that's what we all want in the end, is those magic moments, and we have them at our field every weekend. So I'm appreciative of everyone coming and supporting us through this, and I hope going forward we'll come together and make it happen.
I don't know, thank you for saying that. I think that's one of the things we also have to keep in mind, is that these coaches that we have for all these divisions, they're volunteer coaches, and we need to be kind of, be flexible with some of the needs that they have and options that they may want to be the program. Because that is a challenge, especially when you do coach and find your schedule. You may try to adjust your work schedule or do things to move around there. So I think I'll just say thank you for bringing that up, that for to remember that these are volunteer coaches.
I think overall, I just want to say thank you for everyone that came out and shared their opinion, shared their time, et cetera. Thank you for volunteering for the community as well. We'll definitely take all of your feedback into consideration. It sounds like the most prudent choice, and the choice that you most want is to remove minor teams from Belpassy. So thank you for coming and sharing that. Also, thank you to the major coach who came out and shared that they would appreciate staying in that, because that's also valuable feedback for us. Ultimately, our job is to represent you. So this is helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to just express gratitude for the town that came and supported and voiced their concerns, and in sitting through the proposals last year of Todd. I think that ultimately, as a community, what we were looking for was a more robust baseball program, and I think that Todd was going to be an accelerant to getting that quicker. But the positive that I see that's come out of the situation is that we have a room full of people that are looking to volunteer, and we're going to have a better community and a better program, I think, because of this. So I want to appreciate or just say thank you for voicing your guys' concerns.
Thank you, Matt. One thing I was going to ask staff is if the recommendation from Recreation Commission is to recommend the minors to be pulled out of Belpassi, how does staff navigate through that? Because we have the games for today were canceled. However, there are games for Friday. How does staff navigate, rescheduling games with us? If it starts tomorrow playing, how do we plan out, rescheduling games, also notifying Belpassi that in a way it doesn't make us look bad as a city that we're pulling out. I thought we asked last minute, hey, get us in, and then we're pulling out. How does staff navigate through that?
Well, I think we're kind of past making us look bad for the city, to be honest with you. Like, if I'm going to throw that out there, I think we're past that. So I don't think that's really an issue. I think probably the teams that, I'm not going to speak for Belpassi, but the teams that they probably, if they're true travel ball teams, they wouldn't want to play us either because it's going to be a waste of their time. And they would probably assume have that field for practice time.
Yes.
So that's just.
That's fair comment.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment too from Commissioner Bauer there. Logistically, if this is the way it goes, I think we start contacting Belpassi immediately. I think we focus on the safety issue and express real concern there. Express that maybe the competition is more than was previously provided to us, and see what the situation is. These types of issues are typically, approved by the city council. Next city council meeting's on the 17th. Just logistically, that does not work. There will be 1 or 2 games before the 17th. And so I think we will have to kind of, based on the recommendation of the Rec Commission, we'll have to go back and reassess what our options are. But again, first thing we do is to communicate with Belpassi and just express, the concern that is in this room. I guess I'm glad it's one division of the 3 that we have there. There are 9 total teams in that division, and so if we did pull out, that would leave them with 5 teams, which is an okay number. So we will have to figure out kind of what the next steps are, and we will do our best to communicate that as broadly as we can to everyone involved.
Thank you. And for this agenda item, is there any issues with us approving multiple motions on one agenda item, or we're limited to one motion per agenda item?
One motion can be detailed. If you're referring to the Belpassi rules, your motion can be to adopt the rules for the 2 divisions and not adopt, and in fact choose to pull out of the league. So your motion can have multiple parts.
Okay. I was just thinking more if we, let's say, approve a motion to withdraw from the Belpassi League for the minor division, could we then still stay on the same topic and say we'd like to also approve a motion to create a board or recommend a board? Or are we still stuck with one motion?
So I think that would be a different topic. And since it's not agendized, I wouldn't recommend. But what the commission can do is direct staff to look into the issue, bring it back. There's no immediacy. I mean, it would be great to have one up and running, but it's going to take some time. So you can direct staff to explore the option of creating a board. You'd want to go through the whole process anyway. There would be a call for volunteers. There would be, kind of a selection and interview process, typically. Now, if there was some, I'll just call it emergency situation where we wanted to form one immediately, I think, again, we'd have to navigate how to do that. So I'd recommend just in maybe commissioner communications to direct staff to look into an option. If you have an option in mind, then express that. If it's just general, then you can express the general desire.
So based on that, is there a motion from the commissioners?
I have one.
Oh, no, go ahead. We can go back to discussion.
I would like to understand the softball aspect a little bit more and where we're at on that, I guess, because I haven't heard much, and that's in here as well. I mean, I guess maybe from data, since it doesn't seem to be a concern at this point in this room, I guess, are the girls playing in a league that's, I hate this, but it's valid.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we even look into that if we don't have any feedback.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, like you, we have not heard significant or any really concern with the Modesto Girls Softball League at this point. So all older softball teams are in that league except the oldest team, which did prefer to play in Rainbow because of the age grouping that transpired. So we have not heard concern about the softball leagues that they are in. So I like you, I wouldn't know how to react.
Got it.
Unless there was. But I think the concerns that we've heard about competitive versus rec, and as I understand, those are strictly rec, very, commiserate leagues there. And so they also are traveling to us. So I think they do not have as many concerns.
That helps. Okay. Okay.
On the same topic of girls softball, I noticed that most of the games were TBD. Have they played a game yet for us to even know if the skill level is equitable? They haven't. They have?
Not yet.
They start after.
After, okay.
If there's no further comments or questions, discussion from, oh, that's good.
I just had one more comment and kind of to discuss a little more what Kevin Hall had to say regarding the 8U rookies. They met up separately, the coaches did, to rework a schedule and find one that worked for all of them. I didn't want to just skip over that comment. I felt it was valuable and wanted to ask if there was a way to have preliminary schedules sent to coaches first, rather early to the start of the season. That way they could work amongst themselves in the future and send it back with edits. That way nothing touches a parent of a player's hands before it's a finalized schedule, because kind of the whiplash between that seems to be part of the issue of having multiple schedules and having them redacted.
So the process of pulling the current schedule, so we'd have to inform Bill Passy that we're pulling out. We would have to disable the current schedule, which leaves kind of, wiggle room to move things around. We can pull the field availability. It's open. And we can do a preliminary schedule, make sure that there are no game conflicts for those coaches that coach multiple teams. Send that over to coaches as an Excel file, and we can go from there. Yeah.
I was mentioning more towards like future scheduling. So for example, for next year, finding a way to connect with coaches and sending out the schedule, the preliminary, very early. That way the coaches themselves can vet and say, hey, this doesn't work for me. I have multiple conflicts, or, and that way the schedule doesn't go through posting, being pulled down, posting. So if I'm understanding the feedback correctly, that's part of the issue with the communication.
Yeah.
If there's a way to do that for next year.
I think potentially that's a very good idea. I do think scheduling can be a challenge just based on timing of when things happen and when things have to happen. We have very constricted timeframes. Great suggestion. I think if we do establish some sort of board, these types of issues can be run through the board and ultimately advised. And, if there's a recommendation from the board, we can explore that. Outside of a board or outside of that recommendation, we can explore internally to see if that is a workable solution, for sure.
Yeah, I just want to add on that. I think that's definitely a great idea, because you do see where a schedule will get released, maybe a coach reviews and sees an error, and then there may be some edits and updates. But I feel like what Stephanie's touching on is that you could do something where staff, you quickly make a schedule, and then you upload it as a draft, where coaches can go and just review it and add comments. And that way, I think it helps out staff too, because then you don't have to always try to maybe work out all the details, and some of the coaches can point out some issues. And that's very common, I think, right, when you review documents before you go to council, or you have some type of study that you do. There is a draft process, a draft document gets put, and then people put their comments in, and then you have a final version. That is standard process in government. And maybe that's where I think what Stephanie's leading to is that. And that way, that's nice, right? When you do get a schedule ahead of time, you can see it as a draft version, and so you know it's not set, but it gives you the time to understand as a coach to what works, what doesn't work, provide that comments, and then when you do get a final draft, it'd be less likely for there to need to be edits. Especially as some coaches, they coach multiple teams, so they may catch a time conflict that may get missed. But yes, thank you for that comment.
I just, and maybe it won't be, how will the situation work? Will we just have to find volunteers? Do we have enough time? Because I know that with other referee situations, we have issues at points. Is it okay with baseball?
From my experience, the umpire service that we use, they're phenomenal. So
we should be able to get in.
I don't foresee an issue with them getting umps. I know that there are other umpire services that we can use, so we can.
So even last minute wouldn't be like, okay.
I don't really think that'd be an issue, because we don't have we're not starting a new team with 40 games. It's just 2 games.
Okay.
It's 2 dudes.
And yes, too, I think part of it too is something, let's say you'd want to try to schedule a game this weekend. You don't have to. You could wait a week or two just to make sure there's umpires available. But yeah, there's different options with that. But no, good question.
Hope I say this right. I'll make a motion to adopt the Belpassy rules for the majors.
Well, I think that's in a different agenda item, right?
Oh, what one?
I think agenda item
We're on.
number 3 is adopting the Belpassy rules.
Okay.
But we moved agenda item number 7. And right now we're going over and discussing the solution of
Thank you.
pulling the minor boys out of Belpassy.
Okay, so we're still on 7. I apologize.
Yes.
Got it.
And so with that, is there a motion from one of the recreation commissioners?
A motion to pull the minors out of Belpassy.
We have a motion to pull the minors out of the Belpassy League. Is there a second motion?
I'd second that motion.
All right, we got a first and a second. And before we go to vote, I would like to just open it up back to the audience. If there's any concerns there with that motion, that they can speak now before we vote on it.
Clarify, are we playing on Friday? If we pulled them? Because, your concern was how we were going to do that. So as coaches, we need to know.
Yeah, no.
I would say it's a safety concern,
I say
so
no. I'm saying,
I would say no.
my kid,
Plain
so.
Belpassy.
Okay, thank you.
Need to say immediately.
Thank you.
So real quick, on that point of what Jamie's asking, I think what we originally had discussed with Todd was a 2-practice schedule until games started, and then adopting a Saturday game for the minor league. I think every minor coach, unless I'm wrong, has a Saturday practice time slot right now. So if we would just take that Saturday time and just turn it into a game, it would shorten it down to 2. I think that's probably the simplest solution here. So that would be my feedback to kind of get this done quickly. And then also I did want to say, I do really appreciate Yvette's work. She's been actually, with the communication issues, she has been on top of getting back to us and trying to work out the schedule as much as she can. So Yvette, I really appreciate you. Thank you.
And thank you. Yeah. So with that, does anybody want to amend their motion, or you keep the motion as is?
I second it.
Okay. Jim and Dan, you want to keep that same motion?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a first and a second motion to pull out the minors out of the Bel Passe League, and we'll do a roll call vote for this.
Commissioner Bauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Silva,
Aye.
Commissioner Trejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Hogan,
Aye.
Commissioner Showalter.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. So with that, then we'll move on to agenda number 3, passing the rules. And before we move on to that, I know some people may have come only for that topic, so don't feel bad if you need to leave and go home. But then, again, thank you for all of you come out to make this program better and provide your feedback.
So at this point, can I, since we've talked it out, or should I make sure that no one has any?
I didn't know if other people were here for that as well.
Oh, maybe. Oh, maybe you're right, maybe you're right.
Whoops.
Well, even though they still wanted, they could have stayed. And I'm sorry, I might have made an error on there. I think we said earlier to make number 6 the following one?
Either one.
Okay. Thank you. All right, maybe then if that's the case, we'll just maybe go to the normal order.
Sure.
Number 3, which is number 4 now, adoption of the Bel Passe rules for the 2025 baseball season for minor boys and major boys and 13-15 boys division.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So one of the processes is to adopt the rules like in the past with OBSA prior to the season, so there was an awareness. It is largely a procedural process. There's no real teeth in it, I guess. But in light of all the issues, we definitely wanted to get the rules in front of the commission. Now, some will say, why is it so late? Of course, we've already played games or we're going to play games. We did try to establish a special meeting. Unfortunately, calendar's just in the line, and we all recognize how that can happen with 5 different members up here. So we are here at a regularly scheduled meeting to adopt the rules. The rules are in your packet. Rules are available for the public to review as well if they follow the packets or have access to the packets, which everyone does online, of course. And I don't know if we need to go through the rules, but since we're going to an outside league, and you'll see there's 3 items here, 3, 4, and 5, where we will adopt the rules of those outside leagues.
And I was going to ask, as part of, if there's a motion for it, is it possible for someone to make a motion to say, yes, we approve, these baseball rules, the minor boys, it doesn't apply anymore, but can we approve this baseball rules along with giving the authority or requesting that if there's new rules that come out or the timing that doesn't work where within 30 days of the season starts, that staff can go ahead and just, distribute the rules and accept them. Because I think we did look at the baseball rules almost 2 months ago, if I remember correctly, 2-3 months ago, which is plenty of time, but then we jumped into the Bel Passe League, and so we tried to do a special meeting, as you mentioned, we couldn't. But maybe we can ask part of a motion, if that would work, to say, all right, if it's within 30 days, staff will just go ahead and approve it on their own if they see fit.
Okay, okay. I understood it differently in your recap. So moving forward in the future, if we're within 30 days of the season starting, then staff can approve at the discretion?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That can be kind of the process moving forward if that's agreed on by a majority of the commission.
Yeah, and I think it'll help out with our communication because right with this, until it's approved, we're not sending it to the coaches. and this would help maybe alleviate that issue where we can communicate right away. Is there any questions or comments from the Recreation Commission on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the Belpasse rules for the 2025 baseball season for the major boys and the 13 to 15-year-old boys divisions, and reject the minor boys.
And if I may ask, you can, along with that, add to that motion to give staff the authority to, within the 30 days, if there's new rules or...
And in the future, if we're within 30 days of the season starting, city staff will have the ability to approve the rules.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Yeah, so we have a first and a second. We'll say it together. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All who oppose say nay. All right, hearing none, that motion passes. We'll move on to the next agenda item, adoption of the Modesto Girls Softball League rules for the 2025 baseball season.
No further report from staff, same process for the next two items.
Is there any discussion from the commission? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the Modesto Girls Softball League rules for the 2025 baseball season.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, so we have first and second to adopt the Modesto Girls Softball League rules for the 2025 baseball season. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, hearing none, the motion passes. We'll move on to administrative matters. Staying with administrative matters, but agenda item number 5, adoption of the Premier Girls Fast Pitch rules for the 2025 baseball season for the 14U Softball Girls Division. Same thing. Is there a discussion from commissioners? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt the Premier Girls Fast Pitch rules for the 2025 baseball season for the 14 and under softball girls division.
All right, we have a first. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, so we have a first and a second to adopt the Premier Girls Fast Pitch rules for the 2025 baseball season for the 14U Softball Girls Division. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, the motion passes. And with that, we'll move on to the last item on our administrative matters agenda, discussion, feedback, and communication process.
Okay, very apropos timing here with this item. So staff is introducing really kind of a feedback and communication process to get more involvement from the Rec Commission in day-to-day concerns that we receive. And so what we want to propose in very simple terms is we will monitor all emails, calls that we receive that are concerns, questions maybe, but leaning towards concerns. And we will share those each month with the Rec Commission. That doesn't mean we'll sit on them when we get them. Of course, we'll address them, but the goal here is to daylight any issues. We know some issues are small and they get taken care of and they're no big deal. Some issues may seem small, but they're not. And some issues can, sort of fester over time, right? They grow and they build. And so this is to daylight all the issues that we receive, to give the commission a chance to weigh in, to look at it further, to direct staff, and really an opportunity for the public, if they feel like they're not getting the response they want or whatever it may be, to have an opportunity to express that to the commission directly. So this will be just sort of a standing item that we will bring if agreed to by the Recreation Commission. We will just denote each comment that we receive and share it with you all, and we can discuss as appropriate each month. And I will give credit to new Commissioner Stephanie Hogan for for really kind of bringing this issue to the fore through her kind of thoughts on what it means to be a rec commissioner. We've developed this kind of concept.
Yeah, I just want to say, no, definitely it's a great idea, and I hope we continue this with all the other sports. Because sometimes I feel, we're blind to our own blind spot. So if there are any issues, we just don't know about it. And sometimes I feel folks, we just kind of maybe bicker between each other and not have the proper venue to express these concerns. Whether it's small or big, there could be something that we're just not aware of and could fix if we just knew about it. So this is great idea. The only thing I would like to comment on just some of these concerns. The first one being a coach expressed concerns about the gates at Upper Tell, and I would have stretched that to also the high school as well, being open at 8 a.m. It would be nice if the coaches could come in at least 5-10 minutes early, just so you can just settle down, settle in. That would be nice, especially too for the high school. If their coaches can come in a little early, they can at least help out set up the hoops, if nothing else, or sweep the floor or something. So I think that's definitely a valid concern, and I would hope that staff would somehow could maybe support that. The other one here, the verbal from Coach Cherry, I do agree with her on this because I have coached over the last 3 years. That's the division she's referring to, which is the 7-8-year-old division, the JV division. I do agree with that. I feel that the referees, the high school referees, some of them are a little reluctant to blow the whistle. And so they're just not comfortable. And those kids, there's not ill intention, but they can be a little wild. And sometimes without providing the proper feedback, they can get more and more energetic, or I hate to use the word destructive, but they can be a little more aggressive, I guess to say. If we're not blowing the whistle on fouls or certain movements, they do get more aggressive. And I would say out of all the games, I played this season, I don't think there was a single foul that was called, which doesn't seem right when you think about these kids, how they're playing. And that's all it is. Not so much to discourage the kid, but it's just sometimes the referee is there to facilitate the game and make sure it doesn't get out of control. And maybe it's too expensive to bring adult coaches there, but maybe at least there'd be an option where you can provide training for the high school referees so they know what the responsibility is and how to use the rules and the whistle to just make sure that the game goes well and nobody gets hurt.
I got a couple things on that. So the referee, do we give them any set of guidelines, at the start of the year, focus on calling, traveling, focus on these couple little things, and as the season progresses, we kind of try and by the middle of the season, we want to be calling this and this by the end of the season.
Most of them know the game that sign up for it.
Yeah.
It's just not in their nature to make calls out loud and blow the whistle out. It's one, and so very often one kid that can actually do it, speak up for himself, hear bickering in the background and ignore it.
Yeah. That's tough. It's not easy.
Oh yeah, shoot.
It's not easy.
Never be a ref. But my suggestion on that is to have who's playing the next game, that coach, ref, then you're reffing that game the way you want to be.
Yeah.
Have your game ref too. So you're going to do a good job of that. Still volunteering. You're there a little bit earlier, but
that's an option.
It's going to be a lot better, a lot more organized, and a lot more, controlled that way, I would think.
That's a great idea.
If I understand the question correctly, we have not historically sort of set a guideline on how we want games to be called, loose, tight, that sort of thing. We all know to a certain extent umping and reffing is an art. It's not a science exactly. You got to kind of feel the game, know the game. You got to kind of read the room in that way. But we haven't. We haven't done that. Each ref is different. Each game is different. We haven't done that. I think what will be a good exercise coming out of just this process is we will establish sort of our complaint addressing muscle. One person will see this issue and view it very directly one way. Another person will view it the exact opposite the other way. And so we will decipher kind of, developing this muscle, which are respond toable, which are not, which you just sort of have to leave alone. But, very good suggestion. Maybe we do provide some sort of guidelines. We want to call it tight. We want to call it loose.
Well, I just know with
each week you should progress more and more.
Yeah, I just know with my high school kids, if I tell them, hey, at this point, we want to at least be here, it'll be in their at least it'll be in their mind and gives them an idea of what to look for. But if I don't give them any direction or I'm like, hey, go do this, it's a hot mess. So like if we,
That's the sport you get real bad.
just like give them, just an idea or a thought.
Yeah, I feel like the coaches kind of all check in and we'll be like, oh, we're really working on, this or that. But when you have the coaches doing it, the ref is just like nodding like, yeah, sure. There's no standard. So I do like not only giving them the rule book, but maybe an idea.
I mean, that wouldn't be this year. It's something to work on. Just
It is a good idea.
Not running with the ball like a football. Like
kind of avoiding that,
Yeah.
you can't really do that.
Yeah, and this past year coaching the 7-8-year-old division, I tried to lay out what we wanted called by the refs before the game started. And so that helped giving them some kind of how we wanted the game refed instead of them just being on their own.
Well, that way you can also provide for the volunteer coaches, like the first couple of weeks, we're really going to focus on not running with the basketball. We're going to focus on dribbling, and that's going to be kind of called, and that's how the kids are going to learn. I mean, it's not going to be pretty basketball, but nobody ever said 7-8-year-olds pretty basketball, so.
Specific to this feedback and concern log process, is the person that submitted the request notified that their feedback will be brought up at the subsequent meeting?
I think that would be a very good practice to.
Way they know that, because I would have been interested to hear Coach Cherry's feedback in person as well. I coached sixes along with Samantha Hall was the head coach. I definitely personally saw quite a bit of fouling that wasn't called and some pretty egregious overt fouling like piggybacking to get the ball. And while it's entertaining, someone can definitely get hurt quickly. So I'm in agreement as well with the other commissioners that there needs to be a standardization of the process of reffing. Kind of speaking specifically to concern number 2, I don't know if we're able to make motions based on the concerns that are brought to us. What is the process just in general for someone that has requested a non-coach placement? I wouldn't even know how that would work.
And that's a good point, right? Especially when you have the title as discussion.
Yeah, this was really an introduction of a concept, of a topic. We put these in here for just your reference because, just to give you a guide, like a kind of a template on how it was going to look.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and so thank you. To that, I think we can, trying to think if we can make motions. Yeah, maybe we can just agendize the item in such a way that allows you to make a motion and give direction to staff based on any single complaint that is received within the item.
I guess, for example, just for this moment, if I was to make an example, it would be to motion to have a standardized education given to the junior refs that we use. That would just be an example. My follow-up question was just in regards to the person requesting not to be assigned to a specific team. I was uncertain of what that process would even look like, if that's something we already implement, and if not, what is the idea for that?
No, and in fact, this has come up prior. We hold a draft system, and there's really no way to protect a kid unless they are a sponsor or a head coach against any other coach. Can
you highlight them as a sponsor kid without them really being?
Wait a second. We'll give you the opportunity. I think to add to that, and because some things are kind of sensitive. I mean, there's different ways to approach it. One thing I think about, I'm not sure if you have that with this city of Escalon, but I know it's in the city of Stockton. Sometimes you have things called like around the bench memos and different things to go around. But I would think if there's a situation, like let's say for example, not to pick on Matt, but let's say there's a certain situation, maybe a safety concern, where I don't want my child to be with Matt. There could be something where I bring that concern and why to staff. Like say for example for Yvette. Yvette can evaluate my concern and say, okay, that's a valid concern. And she can just have a private conversation with Matt and just say, hey, just FYI, we prefer you not to draft this kid when you go in the draft. And that way it's not open to the public, and then it's still kind of maybe help facilitate that. Because I know there could be sensitive items if you do highlight it. And also, too, we don't want anybody to abuse it either, because we don't want the flip side of it, where we say, all right, well, I only want this coach. You know, and that's where it really becomes a problem, right? It'd have to be something severe where you have to have that conversation and just let that coach know that, hey, we don't want you to draft this kid.
Maybe that request can come during the registration process.
We used to have them highlighted on there was a request. And in something, that kind of case, you could request to everybody else but that coach, if that's what you really wanted. And when there were the requests, they weren't always honored. They would go through the whole draft process, and maybe they got drafted to that. Coaches in our leagues, they work well together. Like after we're done, saying, "Hey, this guy was requested me. Do you mind if I take him? He's, we'll talk about his athleticism, if he's a ringer or whatever, and if it's, and mostly, almost 99% of the time, it's fine." And that's all it is. That's communication again on a different platform there, but it's
Yes.
that's solvable for sure.
And then if we still can discuss more, but I'd like to open it up the discussion to the audience.
Never mind, Greg, you did better.
Oh, did it? Okay. All right, never mind. Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll bring the discussion back to the Recreation Commission.
I just had one more comment. Obviously, thank you again. I really appreciate this. I feel like it helps us represent the community better, knowing what the specific feedback and concerns. It makes it less hearsay. Oh, I heard people are upset about this, and more concrete. They took the time to write it, and they would like it presented to us. Is there a way to make it under administrative matters one of the first things that we discuss each meeting? That way, if they're told, hey, we are actually brought your concern to the rec commission, that way they can come and their time then will be held as valuable. They could be here for, let's say, 30 minutes, get their idea discussed, and then head out, and then we could do our other in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Is there a way we can give like a end of the season survey to the coaches? So, but like coaches and parents, like just in general, like an electronic, so just more information. Like some of it is going to be kind of like nitpicky, I get all that, but then in some of that non-nitpicky stuff, you can actually find some really good gems to filter through and good ideas. Is that something that we do, or?
Yeah, we have implemented that. So we started doing surveys, kind of general surveys last year. We are now implementing after every season exactly what you just mentioned, a survey for the coaches and parents, separate surveys with separate questions. I mean, largely the same. We received, what, 24?
I think it's up to 32.
Okay,
for
so
parents.
32 responses this year, pretty good. One of the things we'll do is kind of compile and package those responses and bring those also to the commission. But yes, that's something that we definitely want to continue to do.
If I understand, you said this is the only comments we had for basketball, or you saying there was a total of 30, and this is just a sample of it?
This is a sample. So the 30 is how many responses we received from the survey.
To the survey.
Mm.
These are concerns, a few concerns that were presented that kind of jumped out, right? When we put the log together, I thought these would be the ones to go on here.
So separate items, kind of the concerns we receive each month, and then survey responses separate.
All right, thank you.
Is there a separate email domain that concerns or feedback for rec go to? Or how do we?
Not yet. Not yet, but we do have a Recreation Commission email address, but Yvette deals with almost everyone, right, on a daily basis, and they're used to emailing to her email address. So if we wanted to, and that was the best option, we could absolutely establish a new email address or defer people to the Recreation Commission email address if that was better or easier. But again, most people are used to just kind of emailing a vet.
If I may, so we do have a recreation, just a recreation email. It's recreation@cityofescalon.org, that a lot of people feel comfortable using, and that's separate from my email address. We also have the team sidelight contact us option, and you can see that on the second line. People use that, and it's convenient, right? You're on the site, you think of something, you click on it, you send it off. And then, we have the verbals, we have the calls. I also communicate with coaches and coaches that have that number that are not parents through that text message. So there are multiple ways to get, concerns and questions in.
I like this idea. I think it helps take away some disconnect and keeps us accountable and active. So I like this a lot. So thank you guys.
Good example of what happens when commissioners and staff communicate.
Yes. And with that, we'll move on to matters presented from the audience. At this time, the public may address the Recreation Commission on any non-agendized items that's within the authority of the commission. Seeing none, we'll now move on to Commissioner Communications. We'll start on the right with Commissioner Showalter.
Yeah, I thought we had good community feedback this evening, and glad that we saw a big turnout. It seemed like it was pretty similar to when we were discussing the potential contract with Todd, and so nice to be able to see people show up. I would like the city to look into what it would take to create a board, and whether that's specifically by sport or for just recreation in general. Not necessarily, I don't think it's an emergency for this year, but as we move through the off-season and get ready for next year, I think that'd be beneficial.
Yes, I had, Mr. Largent brought up a really good point. We gotta find out what we want our rec, baseball program to look like. Like, to be completely honest, like, he's talked about fascists, there are people like, oh, we wanna be super competitive. Well, if we're being honest, that's not a rec program to be super competitive, and there's so many different options there. I think we need to be realistic and put that out there. So if we do, I do like the idea of a board or a couple of people to spearhead that, because baseball and softball are pretty big and come up with different ideas. But you could be competitive in a rec. There's a way to do that, but you don't need to be ultra competitive. I think we just need to figure out which way we want to go. So if somebody's kid is looking to, go a different direction, then we should be able to tell them at the same time. So that's, I think that clarity is kind of what we need to get with that.
Yeah, if I can just add on to it, I think that's a very astute observation, both by the commenter and by the commissioner. I think we have been a very accommodating league, which is great because that's who we are. We're small. People should be able to provide their input. It's different than going to a big league where you're one of many. Your voice isn't as loud and so there's pros and cons, right, of each issue. And I look forward to us, staff, with the now more engaged Recreation Commission and community, which I do think is one of the good things that will come out of this whole process here, to really, dive into these issues. I do think one of the things that happens over time inadvertently is we move one way based on comments, and we either go too far or there's a faction that is not in line with that. And there's either conflict and friction, or we end up moving back, and there's this sort of back and forth. And so, I look forward to us kind of developing our complaint muscles here, and figuring out how to move the program forward, but at the same time not be too reactive to, kind of every concern that we have because of the unintended consequences with moving too quickly.
Well said. With that, we'll move on to Commissioner Hogan.
Thank you. I appreciate not only the department feedback and concerns log, but also just the openness that we had in the meeting. I appreciate everything you do. I know that you do a lot for the program. Mine is just more of a comment in regards to the proverbial weight of the program. I feel like it is a lot to do for one person. I like the idea of a board. I also didn't know if there were other options in the past. I feel that it's been tossed around that commissioners were champions per se of specific sports and then helped navigate that with the coaches that signed up and so on. I don't know if that's something that we could also explore as an option.
Commissioner Silva?
Well, real quick, just so that, I think everyone understood that, but, sort of a liaison, right? A commissioner liaison, we have 5 commissioners, we have 4 sports, kind of, whether there's a board for each sport or an overall board, but, kind of that liaison with the commission, kind of through staff to the board, I think is a great idea.
In addition, just thinking about that person also helping facilitate getting the coaches together to make schedules, just helping make things easier in general, because I feel that though this is a problem with baseball, what we're talking about right now, this also is a reoccurrent issue with our other larger sport leagues like soccer, for example. Scheduling, et cetera, is a lot for one person.
Thank you. Commissioner Silva?
Excuse me. I think that's a really good suggestion, and I think I hope we look into that. I think it could help us keep our program strong, all of them, so that this doesn't happen in another area where we feel the need to have to go to these outside areas or whatnot. So I think that's a great suggestion. I appreciate, may I call him Matt, you and Matt? Agenda item and the professionalism that came with it, because it could have gone a different way. So I really appreciate that. It got insight into the core of what we needed to get to. I think it was a really good meeting overall, and I don't know. I'm grateful that we can all come here and talk things out and be positive, and I hope that in the end it just makes the program better, which was our goal. And I really love that idea. So I think we're all here for the right reasons, and we can use our talents and our time and help out. Because again, you do a lot, and you get we get a lot of the brunt, but you get a lot of the brunt too. And there's no way that one person can take care of all that. So we do appreciate you, and we're here to help. Well, at least I know some of us. I don't want to speak for all of us, but we are here to help you.
Thank you, Commissioner Silva. And I just have two comments. One is, since our last meeting, we did have the basketball season end, and I did want to say the basketball season went great. So definitely appreciate all the support from staff, even Dave Anderson out there at Upper Tell. I just want to say thank you for that. Only I would just want to repeat my request for when looking at the age divisions for JV and the start division, is see if we can determine a way to split that into 3 divisions instead of 2. So we'll look at that for next year, still look into that as an option. And then the other thing too, I was going to ask, as a lot of feedback we had today was on communication. Now that we've had the request to be pulled out of the Bell Pass League for the minor division, it might be good if we can maybe send an email out tomorrow morning. That way parents and coaches have a confirmation that that's what it is. I would assume some of these coaches would want to notify the parents, but if something isn't solid yet, whether we're going to still be there for this Friday or not, or it's just nice to hear from staff tomorrow morning that yes, the minor boys are pulling out and there's no game on Friday, and then there'll be a new schedule coming out. And at least that way anybody who wasn't here at least isn't here from hearsay, and it's formal communication from staff.
Maybe add one thing, maybe we try and get those kids playing as soon as possible, because if they're already supposed to play a game today, they're probably pretty excited, ready to play. So I guess as soon as possible would be ideal.
Can you remind, I apologize, I have it tomorrow, but it's late. So opening day is the 15th?
This Saturday.
This Saturday.
Saturday.
Okay, I apologize. So they will have opening day, but, okay. So we're gonna hope that opening day is then games?
Yeah, for the rookies and some of the other
Got it.
divisions, they'll still have games that day.
Yes.
And, okay. So maybe if minors aren't ready to play that day, could we, this is just an idea, just maybe they can do like a practice game or something. Is there any, we give them the option if they work it out?
Yeah. we
Or
can
something,
explore.
so they, just so
Yeah.
they have a,
Yeah.
Okay.
We can
That was-
definitely explore. I mean, I'm really cognizant of the fact that, people will think, oh, we move slow or, there's reasons because, things
Got it.
sound great,
Got it.
when we think about them like in this kind of situation and then we get into the real details and we realize there's issues. And so the last thing we want to do is kind of the whiplash issue, right? Moving people back and forth. But the point is well taken. Let's pull them out as fast as possible if that's, kind of where we go. It sounds like that's where we're going. Let's get them playing as quickly as possible. We can explore practice games or all of that to get them going as quickly as possible. So I can't.
no, don't, I guess I just meant more as a suggestion.
Yes.
We're here to support them if they want to. We give them our oomph to do it and yay, good for them, but not anything official. I just,
Yeah. good.
but yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's fair too if we have to wait a week just to give it and just sort out, make sure it's correct. Because obviously there'll be some time to do that. And we are almost getting towards the end of the week. But I just think about, my situation on Saturday. I already have a scrimmage game planned for one of the coaches because we knew we weren't having a game. But if somehow a game gets scheduled, it'd be fine. But I guess I'm trying to point out is if coaches did want to do this kind of practice games, they would have had that option. They could have scheduled it because they already knew they didn't have a game on Saturday and they knew their practice times were 2 hours. So that was already available for them. But we just want to make sure that however it gets made or however it gets done, we want to make sure it's done correctly. So if we need a week to do it, then we need a week to do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't play this Saturday, no.
I had a question for Yvette about time between games. What is the minimum allotment required to turn over the dugouts? And
I think it's 15 minutes.
it's 15, is that our standard?
Doesn't take too long. It depends if the field needs to be dragged real quick or anything like that, but usually you can go a couple games and before you have to do that. So it's usually just getting out of the dugout and getting in, and they're usually warmed up, playing catch on the side, ready to go.
I misunderstood maybe some of the rookie scheduling issue than I thought it was that they originally were slated for longer times in between. And so,
They were slated, the rookie schedule that was given to staff already had that 15-minute buffer, right? Staff added an extra 15 minutes, not taking into account that buffer was already there.
understood. Okay.
And then, I'm sorry, one thing I did forget to mention is we didn't approve the Belpassi rules for the minor division, which makes sense. But then coaches may wonder, then what are the rules? Because when we did pass the rules, last meeting before, it was coupled with the Oakdale rules. But we're also not playing Oakdale. So it might be just good just for, also in that email, letting parents know, that we withdrew from Belpassi League, and then the coaches to know that, all right, these are the rules we're going to do, which is the Escalon rules, or hey, even if we're not doing Belpassi.
Yeah, I think it was based with specific rules.
But whatever gets decided, and especially too with the approval today to allow staff to make that decision, it's just nice to make that so that way the coaches know how to coach. Because currently with the minors, we ended up finding out that we're going to play using the Belpassi rules, but even the Belpassi rules had two different set of rules within it. They had like a national rules and American rules. And so when I spoke to Darren Whitney, he said we're playing the American rules for the travels, which is like the third drop strike rule was in effect. There was no run limits. So all that was in effect for the American League. But I'm saying that because we started practicing that way. So some of the scrimmage games we had, we started practicing with the drop third strike rule. So it'd be just good if we can just, whatever gets decided, we just have these rules and we know going forward for the season, so we can practice using those rules.
Them too, Rudd, like, just let them know, yeah, because they'll, they make adjustments pretty quick, pretty easily, but, yeah.
Get them to the umpire, he's saying, the umpire.
Sure, and the coaches too. That way they know, is it Oakdale and Escalon rules, or just Escalon rules, or, and just, whatever staff needs to decide, so that way they know what the rules are and can start practicing with respect to those rules. Especially too, there's certain things, well, Bell Passy has it where you can lead off, but the Escalon rules and Oakdale rules didn't allow for lead offs. So all those things, all those little things we need to re-teach our kids how to play based on the rules, but we need some assurance that, all right, these are the rules, we're not continue going back and forth with our kids. Hearing no other comments, we will adjourn the City of Escalon Recreation Commission meeting of March 5th at 8:48 p.m.
I got a set of it.